What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Eye on the U, the Miami Herald's show about those University of Miami Hurricanes. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, joined as always by our University of Miami beat writer, Jordan McPherson. Jordan, let's jump right into it. We're going to go into the big bounce-back win for Miami last week against Wake Forest, 42-14 over the Demon Deacons, a needed win coming off that first loss of the season to Georgia Tech. For a change, it was the defense, buckling down and holding Wake Forest to those 14 points instead of Miami needing to be in a shootout like usual, even though the offense sputtered kind of in the middle there and made things interesting for a while. But, some big plays by Mish Powell, Jacoby George, and Jordan Lyle there just got Miami through one more time. And then we'll look at Syracuse, the last obstacle to overcome for Miami if they can make it to the ACC Championship Game. Again, it's going to be one of those high-powered offenses that they're going to have to slow down somehow to get that done. And then we'll look a little bit at the newest college football playoff rankings, a little more chaos around the country and in the ACC. We'll kind of shake it all down there and talk about a lot of records that are on the verge of being broken. Jordan, as usual, has his numbers breakdown for everybody. But let's dive into that Wake Forest game. Again, they need it not. There's no margin for error anymore, so they had to get it done. But they're in a little dicey spot there at 20-14, with only a quarter to go in the game. But then able to separate and able to get the victory.
Yeah, again, it was another one of those typical, this team's never going to give us an easy game in conference play, are they? Type situation. Again, They were up basically the entire time. They were tied 7-7 early, but other than that, they basically had the lead the entire time. 20-14 at halftime, 20-14 going into the fourth quarter. 20-14 with about 8 minutes left. And then Miami rattles off 3 consecutive touchdowns to close it out. Like Andre said at the top of the show, shout out to the defense. After just getting absolutely gashed by Georgia Tech, they held Wake Forest to just 193 yards overall. And remember, the defense actually only gave up 1 touchdown. The second touchdown was a kickoff return.
Right.
So Miami's defense, they gave up a touchdown on a blown coverage on the first drive. But after that, 9 consecutive drives. It was a Mish Powell pick 6 on the second drive. Then it was, after that, it was either 3 and outs or turnovers on downs the rest of the way. They completely held Wake Forest down with 193 yards. It was the least amount of yards Miami's given up to an ACC team since December 2020 when they gave up 177 against Duke. It was also the first time they shut out an ACC team since 2021. But again, and that defense performance, it was neat. The pick 6, they had 5 sacks overall. They had also the other part that to me was most impressive. I believe it was 3 different Wake Forest drives started in Miami territory, and Wake got 0 points off of them.
Right.
It was
huge stops.
Yeah, it was the huge stops, and that helped Miami get out of with that offensive rush. Again, they had a couple good drives in the first half. They get a couple touchdowns. Andy Borregales hits a couple field goals, but third quarter nothing was working. The first half, the fourth quarter, nothing was working. And then they have a semi-long drive. Cam Ward gets a 1-yard touchdown run, gets them a touchdown. They had a 2-point conversion to go up 28-14 at that point. Next kickoff, Dylan Day and Bobby Pruitt, the pair of true freshmen, force a fumble, recover a fumble. They get a ball in the short field. Jordan Lyle gets an 18-yard rushing touchdown. They're up 35-14. Turnover on downs, Jacoby George touchdown to ice it. The offense getting that little bit of jolt late. I'm hoping it's going to be a kickstarter for him because, again, the Georgia Tech game, they were good, not great. Wake Forest, they were fine. They did the job. Miami knows they need a lot more than just good and fine from this offense. Has been the number 1 offense all year. Hopefully what we saw from them late will help kickstart them as they move forward into their regular season finale against Syracuse.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about the Orange, but Powell, the degree of difficulty of that pick, not necessarily the return, incredible. But to make that pick, because usually, 9 times out of 10, that's a batted pass or something like that. But for him to actually bring it down in that short window, huge play, game changer. Because at that point, you're kind of sputtering a little bit, and what he was able to do, and what a great addition he's been overall to this defense this year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Again, and I think Lance Guidry and Mario Cristobal both said that pick 6 was the game changer. It was Wake Forest was in Miami territory. Miami was only up 10-7. Their second drive stalled. They had to settle for a field goal. If Wake Forest takes the lead there, who the heck knows what happens?
Right.
And then Mish makes the return. It was his 5th interception of the year. That's leads the team. Nobody else on the team has more than one. It's tied for third nationally, if I remember correctly. He's had his share of ups and downs. He's had some really good moments, but I mean, he's also been a guy who's been picked on the passing game a decent amount. But when he needs to rise to the occasion, he has risen to the occasion a lot this year. Again, he had the pick, he had a sack, he had two other pass breakups in the game as well. He had an all-around great effort, and that was the type of performance. That was part of the reason why they wanted Mish Powell on this team. He's a veteran. He's a sixth-year senior. He played in the national championship game last year with Washington, so he knows what it takes to play when the pressure gets ratcheted up. He knows how to play in those pressure cooker situations. And even though, yes, it's only a Wake Forest team, but with where Miami is in the season, knowing that it's win or potentially that's it, he rose up to the occasion and he helped set the tone for what the defense needed to do for the rest of the game.
Absolutely. I mean, I know what we're doing. If you said who knows what happens, I know we might be here 9-2. We'd be previewing signing day next week already.
Right.
We'd be lamenting the squandered season that it was, and could still be the case a week from now if Miami doesn't pull it off at Syracuse. But like you said, those guys that have been through it, they've done it before. Maybe not here in Miami, but other places and high level college football, obviously coming from where they were, from where he was. That's going to have to play big in a game like this where the playoffs have started for Miami. Let's be honest. I mean, that already happened starting last week. I mean, yes, the degree of difficulty is going to slowly ramp up, but that defense needs to be on point as much as possible because this Syracuse team comes in with the next best offense, I guess you could say statistically anyway, in the ACC. And then if you want to even peek past them, which I know Miami better not, but us as media and fans can do, and other fans can do that. But SMU, explosive, another team that's going to challenge them. And then if way down, if they get to the playoff, you're already looking at the bracket. They're kind of being bracketed in where, like as of Tuesday night, it was Indiana or Penn State. I mean, Indiana, again, another team that can light the scoreboard up. I mean, they finally had their reality check against Ohio State, but still, that's an explosive offense. So the point being, Miami's defense needs to put together not just what it did against Wake. They've got to put that and sustain that for an entire game, not just in spurts, but have that consistently enough and start. It all starts this week up there. Do they still call it the Carrier Dome? I don't even know.
I am still calling it the Carrier Dome, but it has a new name. It is the JMA Wireless Dome, also known as the Carrier Dome. We're calling it the Carrier Dome for the sake of the show.
Yeah, I go back to remembering the Donovan McNabb running around and making plays against Miami in those days when it was definitely the Carrier Dome. But in a way, a good thing for Miami because if not, this would be a cold weather game. So bundle up, everybody.
Yep. The high, last I checked, which is about 20 minutes before we started recording, the high over the 3 days I'll be up there Friday to Sunday, I believe is 37 degrees.
Yeah. So good thing it's a dome game. But that being said, you're gonna get Syracuse's offense probably full go in this one. And we know how explosive they can be. Their quarterback, McCord, is one of the best in the conference. It's going to be a loud environment for sure. Not that Miami hasn't faced, not that a lot of those players haven't faced that before, but this is not, you can't look at Syracuse just on record and say, no, this is a challenge that they're going to have to overcome big time if they want to get to where they want to get to.
Yeah, no doubt on Kyle McCord. He's not just one of the best in the conference. He's one of the best in college football.
Oh, in college football, right.
I mean, the thing is, he leads the country. Again, they lean on him so much. He leads the country with 522 pass attempts, 341 completions, and 3,946 passing yards. Granted, if we want to compare him to a certain quarterback who we've been chronicling every week this entire season, he has about 200 more passing yards than Cam Ward, but is throwing the ball 123 more times.
Right.
So he's able to make the plays. He has a wide array of weapons, but he is just slinging it. But again, 26 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. A reminder that 5 of those interceptions came in that pick game where he threw, I think, 3 pick sixes in the span of 8 minutes or something like that. That was an unreal game there, but he's thrown for at least 280 yards every game, and he has a bunch of weapons. He has 5 different guys who have at least 415 receiving yards and multiple receiving touchdowns, including old friend, local guy, tight end, Aronde Gadsden II, American Heritage alum, son of the former Dolphin.
Mhm.
He leads them with 65 catches, 810 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Their running backs are really involved in the passing game. He can extend plays himself with his legs. So he is very similar to Cam Ward in his ability to escape problems in the backfield, extend plays. He has a running back in LaQuaint Allen who, while not used as much, he still does have 12 rushing touchdowns, and he's caught, I believe, 3 or 4 touchdowns as well. So Miami's defense is going to have its hands full. It has a lot of weapons it needs to cover, and probably the best way to get to him is do what they did against Wake Forest and just get him off his game, get him off tempo, find ways to rattle him early. Because if you can get him out of his normal blueprint of being able to do what he wants and force him to go to his second read, his third read, or find ways to just completely disrupt plays, that's going to be their best case for success. Is it going to happen? We'll see. But Miami showed that it can do that against Wake Forest. They mixed up a lot of their personnel. They moved Akeem Mesidor from defensive tackle to defensive end, had him replace Tyler Barron. And that really helped them with setting the edge with Mesidor and Bain on both sides, which is sort of what we saw a little bit when Mesidor was healthy last season, was the two of them on the edges, and the two of them really bounce off each other well. If they're able to continue doing that, that's a good starting point for what Miami will need to do moving forward on Saturday.
It's impressive how Syracuse has really opened this offense up and turned it into what it is now after the coaching change. Going from Dino Babers to Fran Brown now, and the way they've been able to just go from a team that used to run so much and now just this wide open passing game. Yeah. It's definitely going to be it's going to be a really again on the road. I mean, I know earlier this season I kind of looked at it and wasn't off by saying Georgia Tech was going to be probably the biggest the riskiest game being on the road and all that even more. But I think I'm taking back a little bit what I said about Syracuse being maybe the less. I think now they're both equally can be a hindrance. And this
we basically said at the beginning it was going to be Louisville, Georgia Tech, and Syracuse were going to be the 3 biggest ones to watch for outside of Florida State before we realized what Florida State actually became. Congratulations on being Charleston Southern, by the way, Florida State. But again, we knew that those 3 road games were going to be somebody. Yeah. Hey, it got them to finally score more than 21 points for the first time this season. So, well, they'll hang the band. I'm sure they'll hang the banner when they face Florida this weekend.
Yeah, against the 1-11 FCS struggling FCS team.
Well, again, the battle of 1-win teams, man. They were facing level competition finally. There we go.
Hey, look, and now the Gators clinched bowl eligibility before this game.
Yep, and got to play spoiler in the playoffs, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
But back on point.
But back to this again. We knew that. Again, we said on paper Louisville because it was after a bye week with Miami's history post bye weeks. Georgia Tech just because it's Georgia Tech and everything from last year. We knew there would be a little more emotion in that game, and we knew some things could happen there. And then we had Syracuse at the end of the year. If the team was in the position, just with them being in uncharted territory, would they be able to finish the job? We knew those were the 3 big tests, and here we are. Miami is favored by 10.5 right now, based off looking at the odds on OddsShark right now. Favorite 10.5. The over-under is 67.5. I think you might want to just bet the over now if you haven't already, people.
I bet do the safer one. Yep.
Yeah. But
in fact, any game Miami has left might be the safer one. Would be to pick the over. Correct.
Yeah. But again, I think it's going to be a good game. Again, 10 points, a touchdown, and a field goal. Again, I could see that happening if the defense can do enough and the offense can be what we've seen this offense able to be. I think they should be able to handle business. But again, I go back to basically every caveat that I've said all season with this team. With how they played and how they basically played with fire all season, you never really know.
No, that's the thing. It's been an adventure on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to think, and this is what I said earlier about this game, it wasn't to knock Syracuse as much as I felt like being at the finish line, you'd probably have even more focus than you would in a mid-season type game like this against Georgia Tech. And that's why I thought this was a little more winnable for Miami in that sense. You hope that that's the case.
Yeah.
You hope that they have that, but they're for the fans that have followed, they know.
Yeah,
This is highly. No, I was gonna say that before you go, real quick. This reminds me, unfortunately, this has that scary recall of 10-0 going to Pitt.
Exactly.
And what happened? I mean, it didn't cost them the ACC title berth that year, but it did cost them the national title chances at that point in the season. And now this time, it would be even worse. It would cost them both.
Yeah. And for me, it's looking at the balance of focus, yes, but do they tense up? We saw that at Georgia Tech when they didn't have as much pressure on them at that point, and they flat out said they tensed up. All of their weak points that had been masked by winning got exposed. Just the balance between being focused, knowing what needs to happen. Do they get over-focused? Do they end up trying to be too fine, too perfect? Right. Or compared to what they did against Wake Forest, where it was, okay, they're giving us this, let's take this, and doing the methodical approach. But we saw, do they build off that, or do they get too antsy and get too, I need to make this play, everything's revolving on this one play, and then they overdo it. That's the balancing act that's going to be coming here.
Yeah, they can't get in their heads. They have to play the sound. They stick to their game plan and play to their strengths, like they have shown they can do. And not let the elements or the situation, anything like that, get to them. I mean, obviously, everyone always says that, and it's up to the guys on the field to easier said than done to get it done. But you would hope that this team has grown up enough this season through what it's been through to handle the moment.
Yes.
And it'll be telling because look, if they don't and they lose, then they didn't deserve it anyway. But if they do and they do handle it, then hey, you know what? That's the encouraging sign going forward when you're going into a championship game the next week, and then the do or die scenario if you get past that. So one way or the other, this is the telling week. So
yes.
But we're going to look a little bit besides just the big picture situation. Jordan has some records and numbers that could fall as this season, one way or another, seems to be drawing to a close here. Jordan, go ahead. Let us know what other records that have already not been broken for Miami.
Yeah. All right. So we've touched on a few of these already. I'll just start with the basic ones for a couple of the players. Xavier Restrepo, we already know he has the career march for receiving yards and receptions. If he gets 6 more touchdowns this year, he ties Michael Irvin for career receiving touchdowns. But for individual season stuff, he's 21 yards away from his second 1,000-yard season. Andre, do you know how many receivers in history have multiple 1,000-yard seasons?
Surprisingly, maybe very few, I think. Even though
None.
It seems like more.
Zero.
None. Zero. Okay, I was going to say maybe one.
No.
But
no.
Not even.
No, there are
different
only
era.
6.
Different era.
No, there are only 6 receivers.
I'm surprised like a Reggie Wayne or someone like that wouldn't have had it. I mean,
Interesting enough, Michael Irvin and Reggie Wayne, neither of them had one 1,000-yard season.
No, fine. But I hear you. But I'm saying like if someone, I think by the time Reggie Wayne was at Miami, offenses were throwing it a lot more. Like in Irvin's day in the 80s, you ran the football more and things like that. Yeah. But that's why I think like if anyone could have had it, might have been Reggie Wayne.
Yeah, the only receiver pre-2002 with a 1,000-yard receiving season was Eddie Brown. Andre Johnson had one in 2002. Leonard Hankerson in 2010.
Good one. Yep.
Yeah. Leonard Hankerson in 2010, Alan Hearns in 2013, and Charleston Rambo in 2021. And then Restrepo last year and basically 2 catches away this year.
Yeah. And Charleston Rambo, of course, had that big one. Very prolific season.
Yeah, he has the school record with 1172.
Yep.
Restrepo needs 194 yards to break that record. Restrepo, so basically if they win this, assuming, again, it'd be interesting seeing, that's the caveat right now. If they lose this and aren't in the playoffs, how many of their big guns are playing in bowl games? So that's why I'm looking numbers for this week, because who knows with the beyond.
Yeah, exactly.
But Restrepo needs 194 receiving yards to set the school record for receiving yards in a season. And he's 3 touchdowns away from tying Leonard Hankerson's record for single season touchdown catches.
I forget how prolific Alan Hearns was in his day at Miami.
Yeah, and then a couple of the other individuals. Cam Ward, he already has the passing yards records, but he's 226 away from the first guy with 4K. Andre Borregales, he has 71 career field goals made. If he hits 2 more, he's tied with Carlos Huerta for second most in history. He's 6 away from tying Michael Badgley's record. School
Nice.
record for 77 in a career. And then the team offense, if they get 119 yards on Saturday, most yards in a season in school history. If they get 36 points, most points in a season in school history, both breaking the 2002 season's marks.
I mean, if they don't get 120 yards
Yeah.
in this game, they're in some
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
trouble. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that's gonna fall.
Yeah.
Now the 36, I'll say they better get 36
Yeah.
the way the Syracuse offense is going.
Yeah. And then just lastly, if they win, it's the first time they'll have 11 wins since joining the ACC. They had the 10-win season in 2017 before everything fell apart. Pick Clemson bowl game. And it'll be the first time since going 11-2 their final year in the Big East. So that's it for your quick numbers of the pod.
It's had that special feel that hasn't been, with this program. Even that season, to be honest with you, and even more than that season, I think, going back to probably, the last time they were a national champion or a real national championship contender in the early 2000s. So it'd be nice, like I said, now they have to make it count.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'll fall short, but let's look at how crazy Miami the rankings are, and the projections, and just the chaos that's been happening around college football. We'll start, of course, with the Hurricanes moving up 2 spots. The ranking right now isn't really, it's nice, but what really matters is the point is it's like win out and you get into that 3 seed. It just seems like the path is clear. Yeah. The ranking right now is for cute. Okay, we're 8, now we're 6. Oh, it looks nice. Yeah. No, the 3 seed is what matters. And Miami can only get there by winning their next 2 games, hypothetically being winning this week and then SMU in the title game. But if you look around college football, let's just jump into that SEC, my friend, because holy crap.
Yeah.
Only one loss team left, and that's the Hook'em Horns. Only two loss teams left. And then a cluster of 3 loss teams, and the likelihood of still more of that happening because the SEC title game is going to knock somebody, hand someone else an L. Alabama's playing Auburn, who just had an upset the other day. This South Carolina Clemson game, if Clemson wins that, South Carolina gets dealt a 4th loss in history at that point. So a lot of key games coming up this weekend. But this SEC really makes it intriguing. Can a 3-loss team make the playoff? It's looking more likely now.
Well, the scenario that I've been harping on just for peak chaos to a few of my friends over the last couple of days. Remember, we have Texas and Texas A&M this weekend. Right. The winner of that game goes against Georgia in the ACC Championship game.
Right.
The complete hypothetical. 3-loss A&M beats 1-loss Texas, who, let's face it, they've had the easiest schedule of the SEC teams. Their only real team that they faced was Georgia, who they lost to.
That game is at A&M.
Exactly. So it's not implausible that A&M beats Texas. So you then have 2-loss Georgia and 3-loss Texas A&M in the SEC Championship game. What if
A&M wins
Texas
again.
A&M beats Georgia? The SEC champion, the only one that can get a bye, is a 3-loss A&M team. That also impacts Miami, because that moves Miami up to potentially to the 2 seed, not the 3 seed.
Right.
Which again changes things up.
Right.
So the SEC being the cluster that it is, but to point it out the way that they tried to spin everything, again, one of their main PR people over the weekend tweeted out, it was a great week for the SEC. Home teams went 3-1 against ranked opponents. And I was like, that's a great way of spinning that your ranked teams went 1-3 on the road against unranked teams. But on that front, again, there is still an avenue for a 3-loss A&M team to be the team that is in the discussion for the 5 auto bids.
Right.
And then you look at the rest of the chaos, just to peek through to other things. And just to remind everyone, the 5 auto bids aren't the Power 4 champions and then the best group of 5 team. It's the 5 highest ranked conference champions. Right. So when you look at a situation like, let's remove the SEC. Let's say Texas or Georgia wins it, whatever. They get one of their big dogs in.
Right.
Miami or SMU, and then Oregon or Ohio State. You have those 3.
That's 3, right.
Boise State, if they run the table, they're one of them. Whether they're 4 or 5 is to be determined. But based off the rankings right now, the Big 12's top-ranked team is Arizona State at number 16.
Coming off a big win over BYU.
Yes. Tulane, the leader in the clubhouse for the American Athletic Conference, is 17. If the Big 12 keeps falling in the turmoil, could we have 2 group of 5 teams as part of the 5 auto bids and the Big 12 completely left out?
It could happen.
It could happen.
And already every time the Tulane pops up on the rankings show every week, I'm like, oh, that's right. Tulane is this good. I can't believe it.
And again, their 2 losses were early in the year, and they've completely rebounded since.
Yeah.
I mean, their 2 losses. I'm pulling up their schedule now just to make sure I have everything completely accurate.
They lost
by 1 score to Kansas State, and they lost to Oklahoma in back-to-back weeks, September 7th, September 14th.
Which just jumped into the top 25 this week.
They finally jumped back in, but they've routed every opponent they've faced since. 45-10 over USF when USF was still looking like they could be something. Right. 71-20 over UAB, 24-10 over Rice. Granted, again, this is the American Athletics, so we're not expecting much among competition, but 35-0 against Navy. They faced Memphis on Thursday to close out the regular season schedule. Navy has fallen off. They face Memphis, who is among AAC teams that's mid-tier, and then they have Army in the conference championship game.
And then this whole playoff picture, and then you've got, and then there's Mod Award goes to Notre Dame.
Yes.
Which keeps winning.
Yes. Yeah, and that's another one. Notre Dame
and looking good, and looking like one of the better Notre Dame teams I've seen in a while with that running game, complementing Riley Leonard and their defense.
Yeah, but again, there is so much chaos that could still happen. There's so much on the line, and I think I've said basically every week, for the first year of a 12-team playoff, to have this much chaos, to have this many teams still in the field, basically the entire Big 12 is still in contention to make the playoffs.
And what a finish. I don't know if you got to see it, but what a finish with that BYU Arizona State game. Everyone rushed the field thinking the game was over.
Then had to go back
20 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's like the third time that's happened this year at least.
Yeah, the replay review. Like they showed it, the ball landing in the seat in the crowd, right with 1 second left. They got everybody back. Kenny Dillingham, the coach at Arizona State, former coordinator at FSU, telling everybody, get back. Like he's railing at the like they could not air what he was saying to the officials for doing that.
Yeah,
he was. I think he was even threatening to take his team off the field. If I read lips correctly, he's like, "This game's over, and we're leaving." And finally, they bring him back, and then he catches the Hail Mary, but at the 3-yard line.
Yeah,
I mean, and think about the consequence that could have.
If
the Big 12 gets left out.
Yeah, and then also just one other thing for the chaos and all of this. This is helping the ACC. So again, you have in the rankings right now, you have Miami at 6. SMU at 9 and Clemson at 12 as the first team out. Because remember, the fifth conference champion was below 12. So they get the 12 seed. So if Clemson beats South Carolina and you have a Miami SMU ACC championship game, if they have Miami at 6 and they lose in a top 10 conference championship game, would they completely drop Miami out at that point?
Especially if that game's close, last play of the game or overtime or something like that.
Yeah. So this SEC completely kicking itself in the teeth gives Miami, if they make the ACC championship game, that's my caveat. If they make the ACC championship, it could give them some margin for error, but that's to me only if they make the conference championship game.
I just had a vision of the representation of the SEC is like Peter after the chicken fight, like his eyes swollen, the teeth falling out, bloodied up. Like that's the SEC right now.
Yeah, but knowing the SEC, the chicken's still going to come back up right at the end.
The chicken's going to, Yep, that's still going to happen.
Chicken, gave me that coupon.
Yep, that's still going to happen. So. It's going to be wild, and we'll be here to chronicle it for you. Jordan will definitely be doing that in writing. He'll be up there, up at Syracuse in the formerly known as Carrier Dome up there this weekend. So follow all of his work at miamiherald.com. And we appreciate you for watching this and every episode of Eye on the U this season, and we'll have more for you as this Hurricanes run goes as far as it's going to go. For Jordan McPherson, I'm Andre Fernandez. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hope you have a great one. Enjoy the games this weekend, and thanks for watching Eye on the U.